Tabletop role playing games can be a lot of different things. Some are built for horror, others for tension or suspense. And even in those games, humor still finds a way in. Not constantly, not in a way that ruins the tone, but enough that you notice it. Which made me wonder, why do tabletop games tend to drift that way? Why does laughter show up even when no one is trying to be funny? To get at that, it helps to think about what humor actually is. Most jokes work the same way when you strip them down. They set something up and then they break it. If you think about some of your favorite jokes or moments that made you laugh unexpectedly, they usually hinge on that turn. You thought one thing was coming and something else arrived instead. Or said another way, humor is the subversion of expectations. And tabletop games are built to do exactly that. Players plan, they picture how a moment should unfold, they imagine outcomes, and they get attached to a version of the story in their heads. And then the dice hit the table. The dice don't care about their plans, they don't care about the pacing, and they don't care how important the moment feels. In the language of scripture, the lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. Whatever you believe about providence, that verse fits tabletop play remarkably well. Control is surrendered the moment the dice leave your hand. And that loss of control, that's where humor enters. You've seen this moment before. The party finally reaches the final villain. The tension has been building for sessions. One character charges forward, confident, heroic, ready to end it. The roll happens, it's a nat 1. The character stumbles, misses, and falls flat on their face in front of the greatest threat they've faced all campaign. And the table laughs. Not because the moment didn't matter, but because it mattered so much that the failure couldn't land quietly. Humor absorbs the shock. It gives everyone a way to process the collapse of expectation without turning the moment into awkwardness or disengagement. And this isn't something unique to games. People use humor the same way in real life. They joke under stress, they laugh after mistakes, they reach for humor when things go wrong, not to dismiss what happened, but to stay connected to it. Humor lets meaning survive uncertainty. At the table, failure is public, it's immediate, and it's shared. Humor lets that failure exist without shame. It keeps people invested instead of pulling away. It's also worth asking whether a completely humorless story would actually feel serious or whether it would just feel artificial. Real life isn't tonally pure, and neither are stories that last. Even the most dramatic narratives make room for wit or irony, because humor is one of the ways humans show resilience. Tabletop games don't smooth or sanitize those moments away. And that's in part because tabletop games are played in small groups. Comedy depends on shared assumptions. Jokes land when people share enough context and trust to understand one another. As audiences get larger and more polarized, that shared ground shrinks. Misunderstandings become more likely. Sometimes offense follows not because anyone meant harm, but because the assumptions underneath the joke don't line up anymore. That's why broadly shared comedy feels rarer these days, not because people stop being funny, but because fewer people are standing on the same ground. Tabletop games avoid a lot of that. The audience is small, the context is shared, and everyone knows each other well enough to read intentions instead of assuming the worst. In that space, humor doesn't have to be defensive or performative, it can just be relational. And over time, that closeness deepens. Inside jokes form, you don't have to explain things as much anymore. A look or a phrase suddenly carries way more weight than it used to. The table becomes funnier not because the game gets sillier, but because everyone understands each other better. Laughter starts to feel like a signal that you belong there. That isn't derailment, it's fellowship. Some of the most memorable stories are the ones that let humor and seriousness exist together. Humor doesn't weaken serious moments. If anything, it makes them sharper by contrast. Tabletop games do this naturally, often without anyone planning it. A joke slips in before disaster, laughter shows up after catastrophe. Somehow, levity weaves itself right into moments that actually matter. So, when tabletop sessions drift towards humor, focus isn't being lost. Instead, expectations and uncertainty are being confronted. And people are choosing to face that uncertainty together instead of pulling away from it. Humor isn't the opposite of meaning, it's often how meaning survives uncertainty. I'll leave you with that. Until next time, may God bless your fellowship, your stories, and your play.